All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Geno Taglione,
And I'm Adrea, Sustarsic.
and we're going to talk to you guys about factors contributing to involvement in cause-related marketing campaigns. Here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First, we have background research. Then we'll move on to some research questions, methodology, sample description, our results, and then future research.
Okay, so first we'd like to define cause-related marketing in case you might not know. So it's a marketing strategy. It's very popular today. It's a form of corporate social responsibility. It combines a for-profit organization with a social or charitable cause, and this provides a benefit to both, or to the organization, the cause, and the consumer. And it was first implemented by American Express in 1984. They were trying to help renovate the Statue of Liberty. So a little bit of background research about different types of CRM. We found that there's two types that are most commonly used. The first is called purchase trigger, and the second is called facilitated giving. And just to specify, from here on out in our presentation, we'll refer to the first as PT CRM, and the second is FG CRM. So purchase triggered CRM occurs when a portion of a product's revenue is donated to a cause. And facilitated giving is commonly referred to as charity at checkout. So that's when you are about to check out when you're shopping, and they ask you if you want to round up your dollar for a cause.
And we're going to continue with background research with the variables. First, our dependent variable is involvement. Consumers are more likely to purchase a cause-related product when products are consistent with the consumer's typical product involvement patterns. And then we'll talk about our independent variables, which are values, altruism, and age. Values, the function of marketing is to help consumers fulfill their values and hope to attain some benefit from their purchase. Then altruism, consumers exhibit high levels of altruism, or they're more likely to deliberately purchase some benefit or a brand that's engaged in cause-related marketing. And then finally, age. The millennial generation is more susceptible to cause-related marketing campaigns than previous generations due to awareness and sensitivity towards social issues.
So what we found was that there's not a lot of research about consumers who are involved in cause-related marketing. There's a lot of research about the brands who are engaging in it, but not the consumers who want to engage in it as well. So these are our 4 research questions that we developed. The first is, to what extent does the type of CRM campaign affect a consumer's involvement levels with the product? Our second research question is, to what extent does a consumer's level of altruism affect consumer involvement levels in CRM? Our third is, to what extent does Lynn Hale's list of values, which we'll discuss in a little bit, affect consumer involvement levels in CRM? And then finally, what effect does age have on consumer involvement in CRM? So just a little bit about our methodology. We distributed a paper survey, and Geno will get into the involvement scales that we used a little bit later, but we asked a few different types of scales, and then as well as some demographic questions. And this was distributed to students at Robert Morris, as well as individuals living in Western Pennsylvania and the Ohio Valley region.
Our sample description, we handed out to 120 participants. They were all selected on a convenience basis, and we divided the ages into 2 groups. So group 1 was 18 to 39-year-olds, and group 2 were people of the ages 40 plus.
So we developed 2 mock advertisements that we could display to our respondents, and then we could gauge their levels of involvement with a scale. So this is an example of our PT CRM. So as you can see, it's saying that Tropicana will donate 10% of proceeds to a cause. And we chose a cause that was something that was well known because we wanted to make sure there was no confusion there. And then this is our second mock print advertisement that we made, and this one represents FG CRM. As you can see, it's suggesting that whenever you're checking out, you can round up to the nearest dollar to benefit St. Jude.
And now we're talking about our measures. Our first question on the survey asked the participants, when choosing between 2 products in the same product category, they choose the product associated with the cause-related marketing campaign. It was a scale on a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. The next was involvement. Now, as Adrea pointed out, the stimulus was listed above on the survey. And then we used Zukowski's Personal Involvement Inventory Scale, PII, and it listed a series of 20 sets of bipolar adjectives, and it was scaled on a semantic differential scale at 7 points. As you can see, it listed things like important and unimportant, and on the same one it says irrelevant, and relevant. So they're flipped. So in the analysis, we had to recode the variables on SPSS. Next, we talked about altruism. We use Russian self-report altruism scale. We use a 5-point scale, with 1 being never, 5 being very often. And it asks a series, or it made a series of 20 statements, and the person had to respond. It stated things like, I have helped push a stranger's car out of the snow. I have given directions to a stranger. Finally, we use Limkale's list of values. This is on a 9-point semantic differential scale, with 1 being very important and very unimportant, and 9 being very important. And it's a list of 9 core American values. And here's our results. First, we tested the reliability. And we tested reliability on each of our scales. And in order for our scales to be reliable, it had to rank above 0.7. And thankfully, every single one of our scales did.
So to move on to our results, recall that our first research question was, to what extent does the type of CRM campaign affect consumers' involvement levels with the product? So these were all of our scores were added together, and you'll recall that the lowest possible score was a 20 for each person, and the high 40. So we developed the mean averages using a descriptive analysis, and as you can see, ironically, they're exactly the same for both. So we triple checked. We did. So for PTCRM, 92.69, and then for FGCRM, also 92.69. And this indicates, again, from 20 to 140, so this indicates a moderate level of involvement.
Next, to answer our second research question, we asked, to what extent does a consumer's level of altruism affect consumer involvement levels in CRM? So we ran a correlation analysis with each involvement scale. So with PTCRM, there was no statistical significance between altruism and PTCRM. And that also goes for the same for FGCRM, which there was no statistical significance. And then we asked, to what extent do values affect consumers' involvement levels in CRM? Once again, we ran a correlation analysis on both PTCRM and FGCRM regarding values, and there was no statistical significant difference between either one of them.
So our final research question was, what effect does age have on consumer involvement in CRM? And this is where we found a lot of significance, which we were sort of expecting to find. So we ran 2 separate independent samples t-tests, one comparing both of the age groups with PTCRM, and then one comparing both age groups with FGCRM. The mean score, for just to note, for age group 1 was 21 years old, and for group 2 it was 52 years old, and we found significance in both. Additionally, we mentioned, or Geno had mentioned, our first question asked people just currently, how likely are you to purchase a product that engages in CRM for that reason? So what we wanted to find out was the mean age of these people. So we ran a one-way ANOVA analysis. We separated all of our answers into 3 groups. Group 1 being unlikely, group 2 being likely, and then 3 just being neutral. And what we found is that group 1, the mean age is 41. Group 2, the mean age was 32, and group 3, the mean age was 37, and we did find statistical significance here as well.
And just to give a quick summary of what we did find, this describes the age groups right down here once more, just in case you forgot. We found that age group 2 is more involved in purchase trigger cause-related marketing than they are in facilitated giving cause-related marketing. But we found that age group 1, which is 18 to 39-year-olds, are more involved overall in both forms of cause-related marketing, which makes group 1 moderate involvement users of cause-related marketing. So age group 1 is currently more involved than age group 2 overall.
So in conclusion, just to summarize our findings, corporations who are seeking to attract new customers should definitely utilize CRM. We were curious as to whether or not the market was saturated and people were kind of overseeing it, but it's definitely still working, specifically on millennials, and as we saw, millennials from 21 to 32 years old. So we did further research, and we found that social media is the best way to target millennials. So any campaign, any CRM campaign should use social media to advertise.
Here's our references, and thank you. Any questions?
How large How many people were in each of the groups?
60, yes, 60 and 60. And that's-
Were you expecting that age difference? You thought millennials would be more engaged?
We definitely thought millennials would be more engaged, but we thought they'd be more engaged in the purchase trigger than the facilitated giving. And we thought the other age group would be more involved in the facilitated giving.
Right, we thought they would want to write a check, like I know my parents and the older generations who I'm familiar with, they're used to writing a check or, just bumping up the purchase at the end. But what Geno found, he was talking about it with somebody in the older age
Yeah,
group.
with my mom, actually.
And they mentioned that, yeah, and she mentioned that it's a nice way, the purchase trigger is a nice way to do your part, but you're just doing what you're doing anyway. You're busy, you're buying orange juice already, but now it's going to donate to a cause, so.
Because she goes to Kroger's like 5 times a week, and I guess it adds up.
Yeah, so we were surprised on that part, but definitely I expected the millennials were. But again, we couldn't find any research. We thought at the beginning that there was going to have to be research proving that, the younger age group is more involved or more socially aware, but we couldn't find too much about it, so that definitely made us know.
And we were also stunned that altruism and values had nothing to do with it, nor did education. So,
And the questions you're asking is not have you done it, but is this, the level of engagement is kind of, would you do this? Is
Right,
really the question
with,
you're asking.
you mean with the 2 stimulus? Yeah, and that was another limitation of our study, was that there were some concerns that maybe there was confusion and people were getting halfway down the scale and then thinking specifically about this orange juice or 2 St. Jude's, and we didn't, that was our concern, was that maybe we limited it in that way.
And there was no way to tell if they also do like annual giving, so they get their tax deductions towards St. Jude's as well, right?
We
That didn't figure in it.
Right,
No.
no, we did not ask that.
Do you think that millennials might be more inclined to, or might be more susceptible, I think was the term used, to these kinds of things because of the relatively small amount of the gift that's, we're talking about, I think,
Right.
10% of my bottle of Tropicana is going to be a dime or something,
right.
or 20 cents, a big deal. Do you think that's maybe why millennials might be more susceptible to that, because it's an easy way to give?
I think so.
I definitely think so, because none of us have incomes yet, or, large income. So instead of cutting a check, it's just easier if we go through the, grocery line and donate to the urban mission, rather than the nearest dollar. I feel that that's much easier.
Right, we did find a little bit, it was limited, but a little research about millennials being more socially aware. So that also contributed to us thinking that.
Because I think that's ageism.
Maybe. I mean, we're a huge generation too, so there's a lot, that's why it's so interesting, there's a lot.
Quick technical question for my own identification. That Likert scale where they flipped them, and then you had to recode an SPSS. Is there a reason why they did that? They want you to slow down and think about it. That's why they did it.
Yeah. So when someone takes a survey, they might start playing 2s all the way down, because it'd be just invalid if we found that. We toss it out, because there were a few.
Yeah, we did have some